everyone. We have our city attorney online here. Hopefully everyone's had a good night. Just saw all of you last night. Most of you anyway. Some of you weren't here. But thankfully we were not hit by the storm. Thank you, Chief, for keeping us updated on the storm tracker. Because I have certain people that think I'm a meteorologist, and so they always ask me what the weather is. I don't know. So thanks for those timely updates, so we could keep track of the storm. And thank you to all the city staff, city manager, for keeping us abreast on the plan of what we had to respond to the storm if it came. And of course, all the staff that's a part of that, with all hands on deck, certainly appreciate that. And hopefully our citizens, got prepared for the next one coming by getting their sandbags and such, in preparation for that. So let's jump into our agenda. We have our consent agenda. Of course, we have our regular meeting minutes. Is there anything that sort of stands out to us? One thing that jumps out at me is number 14, which says discussion and approval. If we're going to keep this on the consent, just to scratch discussion and possible approval, and just put approval for number 14.
Okay, yeah, just approval. That's just a mistake. Should just be approval.
Yeah. So that's just really the only thing that jumped out at me from the consent agenda. Anything for anyone else from the consent agenda?
I do.
Yes.
It's within our authority to not have to bid some of this stuff out back again. Did that question make sense?
You can extend a contract for several reasons. Say, for instance, with Tetra Tech, bidding out at this point would make no sense when we only have maybe another year getting all of our ducks in a row with FEMA and state. That means that another consultant company will have to come in, learn our system, learn everything about us, and then try to work through that. So you can give contract extensions, but you can't, continually do that. That's part of our purchasing policy.
Well, on one of these, we're extending for the second time.
You mean King?
Ditch digging.
Is it the ditch digging one?
Ditch digging.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things is that you only did it for a year.
Right. The way the prices are so low, it's a 1-year contract, and then we have the option, if the contractor will hold the prices the same, we'll do it. This will likely be the last time. To be honest, I really don't know how they're holding it at $3 a foot, as fuel prices have gone up tremendously in the past 2-3 years since they've had it. So likely this will be the last time we're able to renew it before going back out to bid.
Chris, with that contract, is that the one that it could actually be a 10-year renewal if the price is held for that contract?
No, not that one.
Okay.
No, sir.
So there are some contracts that has different time periods on how long
You're exactly right.
we can renew that contract
Exactly.
if prices don't increase and such. I couldn't remember if it was that one or not.
And this one, we didn't put an end date that it would, could only renew. I think some of them say, 2 times. We didn't put that in this one just because of the type of contract it is. But like I said, likely because of the prices, it will not be able to be approved again.
I would imagine that as they continue to do this every year, doesn't it get a little bit easier for them to do the
So they've got a system dialed in for sure. And then that first year we did it, it was a lot more in depth of
Right.
digging. Now that we've got, I don't want to say got it under control, but now that we have a better grasp on the ditch digging, they don't have to do as much,
Right.
and they're able to kind of go a little quicker because it's not as much silt and debris in the ditches as
That's
it
what I
was.
getting
Right.
at that part, because maybe that's why they're able to keep it low.
Yeah, and if you recall, there was a huge gap between the low bidder and then the next bidder, and a lot of those guys, would have hired someone like this to dig for them.
Subcontract.
Right.
And the other part of this too is normally we don't do just 1 year. We either do 3 years with a 3-year renewal or 4-year with a 4-year renewal. This one was kind of a test. This was our kind of first time going out and finding prices like this. We wanted to see how it went. So we did do that bid a little differently. Normally there are longer terms in the bid docs.
And I guess, and this is not necessarily the contract, but with the ditch digging. I guess next time when we talk through it, if we could sort of, I guess, give a little more detail to some of those like 12th Street, 14th Street ditches, which ones belong to us and which ones don't. For example, like when I'm coming out of Mowood Highlands, I know that 389 doesn't belong to us, and so it's not us to clean those ditches, but others don't know that, well, 389 ditches don't belong to us. And so then it's like, well, hey, we're the first people they call, clean the ditches, cut the trees on the sidewalk, etc. So just saying, as commissioners, that way we could sort of know when citizens call us. Of course, we can direct them to you as well, which is what we should do. But just so we can be apprised of saying, well, hey, if you live on this part of 12, and if your house is facing that way, that's really a state or a county and not necessarily the city, because they'll see you doing ditches on this part of Mississippi, but then when you get to this part, the intersection, like, well, you didn't do my ditches here, and then it you know, I mean, I'm sure it's something that's common that people ask about on some of those areas.
So
They're-
they do, and there's a lot of issues where, we've dug the 1,100 and 1,200 blocks and 1,300 and 1,400 blocks, and those drain to 12th and 14th Street, and the county was behind on digging theirs, or DOT is always behind on digging theirs, so it still caused issues. I mean, it helped drain the areas, but it still caused issues because it couldn't drain down 14th or 12th as it should, so.
I have a question on it. Is there anything in the contract that requires them to go back and fix mistakes they made?
We make them do that, yes. There's been several, Mr. Anderson Edwards, he had an issue, with his ditch over at, is that 13th in Arkansas, I believe?
Yeah.
We had him back over there 3 times, at no charge. They they get paid for the additional, or the original ditch they dug, but if they have to go, reshape it or whatever, we don't pay them for that.
Okay, cool.
Any other items on the consent agenda?
Yeah, on the disaster recovery consultant, I'm not questioning that we need that, not at all. Because I know in dealing with the FEMA funds, you really need someone to help. But there wasn't a cost associated with that on this?
It's no cost.
Okay.
We already have a contract that you guys had approved a certain amount, and we're working off that budget. We're hoping that the rest of the money, I think it's about $60,000 that's on that PO right now, that we can work through the rest of this year, next year off of that.
The Davison Fuels and Oil, I know we're extending it for a year. Is there a reason why we're not extending it for 3 years like we've done in the past?
They've already had their 1 year, 3 year renewal, so they've already been with us 6 years. We actually thought about that, but we just didn't. We just asked for a 1 year extension. Bobby, you can chime in if you want to. Actually give them a 3 year. Davison, he's asking about that.
Well, Davison is the preferred vendor.
Yes.
And they've
Is there
done
a
some.
reason why we did 1 year as opposed to 3 years? That's all I'm asking.
No, there was no
Is there any
specific.
advantage of doing 3 years as opposed to 1 year?
There is, but a lot of them on the fuel, because it changes so much, they don't like to do that. But
Right.
they are willing to honor it again this year, so.
Would it be advantageous for us to do 3 years?
That's my
Yes,
personal
yeah,
opinion, yes.
We would, or 1 year with the option to renew it 3 times.
But
Which
that,
is-
but that price could change.
Yes, and it does. It changes every time we get
But
a
if you do a
truckload.
3 year, the
Yeah.
price stays the same?
No,
No, oh, so it doesn't matter whether you
it
do a
doesn't
year or
matter.
3 years?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
We'll just have to bring it back to you if.
To
we
renew
want-
it,
Yeah,
yes.
exactly, right.
So it's not gonna save us any money whether we do.
No, because you're gonna pay for the standard fuel cost plus their fee.
Okay,
Is what it is. And every truckload, if we get one a month, it'll vary.
right. Okay, thank you.
Other questions for consent agenda?
On number 12, talking about the piggybacking on the county's contract, how does that work? The whole piggybacking thing?
So the county originally bid this out. They had options to renew, so they brought it to their commission to approve renewals, just like we're doing for you all. And then once their commission approved the renewal, then Odyssey sent us a letter, and which I believe I put in the packet, and that letter states, hey, the county renewed, would you all like to continue to piggyback off their contract and renew? So we just have to have you all approve the piggyback renewal.
So piggyback works in terms of if anyone really within the state has a contract and they've signed that contract within a year, say for instance, a year of the date that another municipality signs a contract, and we see it and it's something we need according to our purchasing policy, we can piggyback off of that because it's already been bidded out. It's almost just like the state. When the state, we go state contract, those have already been bidded out, so the only thing we do is write the state contract number, and we don't have to bid it out. Same goes with piggyback. But the vendor has to be willing to allow us to piggyback, so we have to get their permission to do that.
Okay.
Are we the only city that does that with them?
No, there are multiple
Everybody-
cities that
So
that
that's
have it.
probably why they're able to keep the cost low
Right.
by consolidating.
So we've reached out to other vendors as well, just to make sure, to keep their prices honest. And Odyssey does blow the price out of the water for the sodium hypochlorite.
Good.
And it's only the 1 year term. I believe the counties, it will expire, and so the next year they'll have to bid it out. So we'll have to, if we're happy with the price that they have, we'll bring it back to you to piggyback off the new contract.
All right, thanks.
And I do want to bring your attention to number 15, because that date did change. Originally, when Kiki looked on the calendar, everyone had set their dates, and September 10th was open. And we got an email from the property appraiser one night and said, hey, the district is going to set theirs for the 10th now. So of course, we cannot have our public hearings before the county or the school district. We have to have them after. And so that means that we had to change to September 11th, which is a Wednesday. And you guys had originally approved Tuesday. So, I had to
So
pull
the
it back.
commission meeting will be the night before, and then the budget meeting will be the next day? Or
Public meeting, everything. Commission meeting will be on Wednesday, the
it'll
11th.
be Wednesday too? All right.
All right. Anything else for consent agenda? So we're all good for the consent agenda?
Oh, I had a question. Is a Honda good enough for me to buy for one of my grandchildren?
It does have some carburetor issues.
I'm kidding.
Carver.
They're ATVs.
That's right, they are ATVs.
First reading, amending our ULDC to repeal regulations in chapters 1, 3, 9, and 10. And also to adopt the flood management regulations. So that's, of course, we're not, with the first reading, we're not necessarily approving this at this meeting. So it does give us a month to really sort of look through all of this. So we can discuss some of these things today, ask our questions today. And of course, we have a commission meeting for more questions. Then we have our next pre-commission meeting, and then we have our next commission meeting. So we get a few shots at being able to discuss this and ask some questions about it. So don't feel like we're not voting on it Tuesday. So are there any questions so far in what we're seeing?
I'm just trying to.
Mayor, I can brief this issue briefly for you. This is prompted by FEMA's revision of the flood maps. And these revisions to your code and various sections of your code have been proposed and reviewed by FEMA staff, city staff, and myself to make sure that they're internally consistent. But this is a periodic update that is required every time FEMA updates their maps.
Yeah, we did get the letter from FEMA stating that they provided the updates and glad that we're in compliance and those kind of things. Yeah.
So we're just changing our flood requirements to what FEMA states.
Absolutely. We learned a lesson after.
It looks a
Hurricane
lot
Michael.
more than that when you read through it, but
Yeah.
that's really all it
Yep.
is.
But I will tell you, on the back end, our staff have been working on this. We literally have to have a floodplain coordinator, which we have. to handle all of this, the requirements that's in Charles's department. And Charles and his person make sure that all of this is up to date, which is a lot of work.
All right, so are there any questions for Amy or staff about this? All right. Discussion and possible approval to adjust to meet your budget for fiscal year.
With this budgetary change, of course, American Sand and Asphalt invoice, that was actually in the surtax, should have been in street. You can probably go back to your budget and see where it was in surtax when moving it to street. And then, of course, the $134,550 is an emergency sewer project. And that project happened this past week. We have to get that fixed, and we do have the money to do it. We have some additional ARPA money that we're using to get that done.
What's this, is this the fourth change we've had in the mid-year? Is that normal?
Yeah, if you look at some cities, they have them almost every commission meeting. Yeah.
Well, I guess it's, I
No,
guess for us,
no,
it hasn't
no.
been normal for
Right,
us.
right,
Right.
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
So the American Sand and Asphalt, what was the reason for that again?
It was in the surtax budget, and we're moving it to street budget where it should be.
Oh, so we already budgeted for it, we're just moving it.
We're just moving into another department, which is going to be the general fund.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yep.
So it's actually, we're not increasing the budget any?
No, we're just moving it from one to another.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So surtax will go down, street budget will go up, the same money.
Any other questions on number 18?
And Chris can give you more details about the emergency break that we had this past week.
Yeah, so our effluent line that leaves reuse site 1 at the sports park goes down Transmitter Road, makes its way, crosses over 15th, makes its way down Highway 98, and then our surface water discharge site is just behind the old paper mill, right there in St. Andrews Bay. So we have a line, a 24-inch line that runs down Highway 98 with a valve at Cherry Street and 98. That check valve has rotted. It's old. It's been there since the early 90s, I assume. It's finally rotten, and the city of Springfield called us earlier this week that we had water going everywhere. We go out there, and that valve is going to have to be replaced. Marshall Brothers, their staff, though Marshall Brothers wasn't in business at the time, their staff is the one that installed this line, so they're very familiar with everything that's there. Used to, Bay County, Panama City, and Lynn Haven all utilize one line, and they pump the wastewater to the Military Point Treatment Center. Then in the late 90s, when they separated it all, they have 3 12-inch hot taps where they separate them past Cossins Rental there on Highway 98, and this check valve was used to keep flow from coming back to Lynn Haven. The check valve is no longer needed, so we'll replace it with a spool piece, which is just a piece of straight pipe with flanged ends. Just cut the check valve out and then bolt the new piece in. They will also have to do a line stop, which is what the $30,000 is and listed in there, and that is it hot taps the line on the upstream side, and it prevents water from coming back on them when they cut the line open and make the repair.
So it's actually not located in Lynn Haven, but it's our asset.
Correct. It's located right there. I believe that's the city of Springfield there. And it's, like I said, you have Arizona or Creighton Chemical and Cossins Rental on the intersection, and it's right across the street from Cossins on the, what would that be, the northwest corner of that intersection. And it's in a big valve vault, and water was running down the road. We kind of got it slacked off, but there's still a little water keeping the vault full, and we have to go over there and just pump it out until we get this repaired.
Interesting.
All right. Any other questions on 18 or 19? So I guess one question, and it's sort of piggybacking off of what Commissioner Ward asked. after we approve the initial mid-year budget, if there are other emergencies that come up, do we have to then, I guess, bring it up as part of the mid-year budget itself?
So according to our purchasing policy, that if an emergency happens and we're not in, commission meeting, we're gonna make that repair if it's over $35,000. And then we're gonna bring it to the commission, for approval, because we don't want poop in people's yards. We don't want all of those things to happen. And yes, we do, if the money is,
Springfield, though, right?
Springfield, yeah.
but I'm just making. But if that were to happen, that's what we would do and bring it to the commission.
Right.
Yeah.
So seemingly, I guess, as we've approved the mid-year budget for the past 3 years or so, usually it's been more of a, hey, we can envision what our projects are going to be, and when emergencies have happened, they haven't been over 35,000.
That's
So we haven't
exactly right.
had to come back and
That's exactly.
make large adjustments.
And of course,
because
this was not budgeted in the sewer budget, so we had to take some money from our ARPA fund, so of course you have to approve that as well.
But it's only for emergencies. So you,
Well, it's for purchases that's over 35,000.
yeah,
Yeah. Which then,
but if we're not budgeted and it's over $35,000, it's generally for emergencies.
yes.
Yes.
Because we're close to approving a new budget, so then some projects, I know they've delayed to say, okay, hey, we'll just wait until the new budget year
That's exactly right.
to incorporate it into that.
That's right. Something that has not been budgeted or was put into, say, the wrong department. Those are the kinds of things, when we move money, we have to bring it to you all to do.
Okay, you can educate me, okay?
I'll do my best.
Part of this, is this where some of, if I remember correctly, we distribute 20% of our clean water into the bay?
So we try to distribute as much as we can to the reuse system for irrigation, for sports
Yeah.
park, the residents that have. We don't have a dead on percentage of what we send to the bay, but typically the valve is open at 25% just to keep the tank from overflowing. Like the days we have a bunch of rain and people aren't irrigating as much,
Yeah.
to keep the tank from overflowing, and that all diverts to the bay. But if any, like when our reuse was offline a few weeks ago for the maintenance, we had to send 100% to the bay, so everything goes through that line. So we have to have this line because we don't have the capacity, of course, to keep everything for reuse. So we have to have this to be able to discharge into surface water.
And this is part of the line to exit the,
Yes, ma'am. This is, if you're standing where this leak is, you can look right down the road and almost see the water of where it's discharged.
Any other questions?
Guess my question is for number 19, when it comes to Marshall Brothers, is it because it's an emergency why this wasn't bidded out?
Yes, in order to bid it out, we'd have to have a, set of bid documents put together. Likely, if you bid a pipeline repair, they want to see some engineer drawings. Engineer drawings on this would cost us another $15,000-$20,000. It's really unnecessary for us to meet the contractor out there and look at what's there. It's more of a practicality standpoint versus,
Because we already approved contract for emergency repairs, didn't we, at one time?
so we do have the emergency push button.
That's right.
Right.
This is one of those funky items though that, the
It
push,
doesn't fall into that.
no, they do have a push button, but the
But
push.
I mean, this is.
Right, because the push button is, for a 6-inch gate valve, a 12-inch ADS pipe, multiple
Routine.
items. This is out of
Routine
the,
type.
right, this is out of the ordinary kind
Okay.
of material that you need.
That give you some clarity, people? All right.
thank you for educating.
All right. Number 20, any questions on number 20? All right, number 21.
Is this getting paid like answer anything, or is this all coming out of our funds?
It's a legislative appropriation.
So
Yeah,
that is.
this is
that's
legislative.
Reimbursable,
All of it,
Um,
every bit of it.
but we gotta spend it first before. We
Correct.
Okay, right, okay. That was all I had.
And we were under budget this year. We didn't have to take out any roads, so.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
Yeah,
was
I
great.
read something about that, so that's surprising.
Yes.
You have
We
any
were
idea
very
why that
happy.
might be?
Prices coming down.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it ranged from, this was 780
You're right.
to 1.6 million was one of the other bids. So it's
Yes,
big difference.
big difference.
Still crazy. It's crazy how expensive that is. $780,000 for 1.3 miles.
Well, last year, it was averaging $1 million a mile.
Yeah, I
That's
remember
crazy.
that.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
2 or 3 years ago, it was $500,000 a mile, so
Wow.
it's really gone up.
Any other questions on 21? All right, 22.
Is this reimbursable too, or is this gonna come?
Yes, yeah, this is required by DOT to hire the third party, and it's covered also.
Awesome.
Anything else on 22? All right, moving on to 23. Discussion only on Chapter 10, Articles 5 and 6. Of course, that's a few pages. Any thoughts, any updates?
I have one. It's more so of like, I don't know if it's something we can add in here, but you know, there's been instances where people will bring animals to the animal shelter that they just found on the side of the road, but they're not the owner. There's a ton of stuff in here about, the owner is responsible for paying for fees for bringing the animal in. And then if they don't have a Lynn Haven address and they can't bring an animal in, how are we addressing people just trying to do the right thing by bringing animals in because they found them?
Yes, sir. And that happens quite a bit. Even where owners say they just found it and you're sure that they're turning it in. I'm not sure there's a whole lot we can do about that. Now, the ordinance does say it's up to the discretion of the animal control officer whether they accept an animal or not, especially if they're a non-Lynn Haven resident. I think the regular surrender fee is like $20. It's a $100 fee if you're a non-resident, and it's up to the discretion. And when I say the discretion, if it looks like it's an animal that's possibly adoptable, typically they will accept it. If it's, I'm just going to say a mixed bulldog, and we've got 14 mixed bulldogs, they would prefer not to accept it and just recommend them that they go to the county.
Okay, so it'd be recommend going to the county as kind of a.
Yep.
Anything else on Articles 5 and 6? If not, let's move to our comprehensive plan. Is everyone good adding that to the discussion for the agenda after 23?
Are we ready to even discuss it at a meeting?
Well, what happens is we can't discuss anything unless we discuss it at a meeting.
We're discussing it now.
Well, we can discuss it now and just hold off until the next. Well,
I'm sorry. I was just gonna say, I think we should just discuss the process of how
Yeah,
we're going to
so-
implement this.
so we're not necessarily discussing the details of change this and change that. We're just saying we can't talk about any of it without it being in a public forum.
Yeah.
So,
So Mayor,
Yes.
before you all get started, one thing, I think you may have mentioned it yesterday, and then Amanda and I were talking about it yesterday, is that just to put something out on the table for you to consider, because we are somewhat in a time crunch, and you don't want to rush this process. There are things within here that have brought us that we have to change it to meet the Florida statutes in there regardless, it's statutory issues, requirements. One of the things that we could do so that you could have the time to discuss like you want to is to, for us, Amanda, to identify all of those Florida statutes and those things that have to be changed. That's a requirement, you know, no if and buts about it. Go on and submit those so that you meet our time frame, and then you guys continue to discuss and make changes where you want to, without any pressures of trying to meet a time deadline to the state. Because as he was saying yesterday, it's a living document. You can make changes at any time with this document. That's just a suggestion for you to think about. If you don't feel like you're going to meet that by, is it February? Is it February? Is that the? Yeah.
We
Okay.
have to have all the changes. When we said that, we told them, if you recall, we have changes we're going. Our deadline was the end of last year, beginning of this year, to let them know if we were going to update, because there is that 7-year annual requirement to look at it and see if there are things you want to change. So we let them know we were going to change it. And so we have until it has to all be finished by February. And I feel like that's not going to be enough time, because really we have to, in order to do that, we'd have to have it done by the end of the year to send to them to review for 30 days. And so, yes, you're correct. So February is the ultimate deadline. However, we're the ones who told them that we have things we want to change. We could actually make text amendments at any time to the comp plan. But this 7-year review is required. It's required that we look at it and assess it every 7 years. So we've told them we're going to make changes, but we didn't tell them what we're making changes to. We didn't submit elements. We're going to take this out. We gave them no, detail. So I feel that so long as we update it to meet the current statutory requirements, and we just had the Stantec who did the vulnerability assessment, one of the huge things we had to do was put in information on peril of flood and change some of our things related to that in the comp plan. They just finished that and sent it to me. So I have that. I can plug that in. I can plug the new element in. I can make all the changes related to that. And then I can do a sweep to see what other statutory changes have come up, things that we have to put in there. I don't even think there is anything else. There may possibly be one thing. So I know that I could get that done by October. I could do that easily, get those changes made to bring to the planning board and bring to you. And then if you wanted to, we could go ahead and submit that. That will be our update that's required, but then you can have your update without the timeline on it of the other things you wanted to change. Does that make sense? You could take your time then to go through the process of looking at each chapter in depth, because it's a lot. It is a lot.
Okay, question. So if we go the quickie route to have it approved, but then later we decide that the goals that we sent in for February are not the goals that we actually want to address now, what happens then?
What we would be submitting would not be our goals. It would be things like, so we have a property rights element in there. We put that in because we were required to put it in. So we put in exactly what we were required to put in. The peril of flood stuff has been done by the experts, by Stantec. That isn't something I'm going to mess around with. They're the experts. They've said, okay, they're used to doing updates to comp plan.
I guess the question is, this is the document that we have, and we're saying this is the comprehensive plan, which has like goal number 1. So are we saying that this isn't the actual document that's being submitted?
What we do is we submit the, you know how when we do an ordinance, we do a strike through, and in bold we put the new language. So we wouldn't be taking anything out at this point, but we'd be putting the new language in.
But I'm saying, like, right here it says goal number 1. So are we not submitting goal number 1 to the state?
It will be wherever it fits in the peril of flood. I mean, you can all look at it if you want before I put it in the comp plan and see what you think.
No.
I'm not understanding the question.
This document in its entirety, is this what we're submitting to? Is this what the state has to say? This is our
Yes.
comprehensive plan?
Yes.
So what she's asking is, if we submit this now as it, with our changes.
Right.
And then we go back and say, goal number one, we submitted this in February as our goal number one, but in March, we come back and say, we don't want that as goal number one. We want to change it to.
You can change it because they know that that's
Yeah.
what we have now. They know that you're not changing that. They know that that's just what is already there.
I know, but what if we change it?
Right.
They're asking,
right.
can they make changes
right.
after that we submit
Yeah.
something?
It's
So-
goals.
You can
and
make
then
text
it's
changes.
objectives,
You can
and then
make
it's
text changes
priorities.
whenever you want to make text changes. I recommend that you don't do a little change and then wait and then do another little change. I recommend that you do what we were going to do with the ear process, and that is work your way through the whole thing and figure out what it is you want to do and submit them all at once. But if you change something, it's a text amendment, which you are allowed to do. It's just that if you change the text, even if it's one word, you submit it to them for review. They're going to take, there's a procedure. They'll take 30 days to review it, then send back to say whether they're okay with you adopting it. You don't adopt it until they say it's okay to adopt it. So we just submit it by resolution. They review it, then they come back to us and they say, okay, you know, you can do that. And then we can have first and second reading of the ordinances, or they say, no, we want you to do something different or look at this. But they don't do that as much now, like Dr. Chapin was saying.
So how difficult is it to, I guess if I'm getting her question, if we take the advice of staff, rubber stamp this and say, okay, whatever y'all give us, we'll rubber stamp it, y'all go with it. We come back, we change this whole thing around. How difficult is it going to be then to resubmit that and to get that approved again?
No more difficult than if you do that now.
Okay. So that's the question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the question.
You can
is-
change it as many times. They used to have a limit on the number of times you could change it a year, but they don't have a limit on that now. So yeah, you can submit it now, and then you can next month or in 2 weeks submit another version.
And the goal of that was just to give you more time. And if
Yeah.
you don't want to do that, that's fine, but we're
Yeah.
just only going to do things that will Florida statute require.
Yeah, and some of the things that are in there are data driven. I don't know now how strict they are on making sure that you've got supporting data and analysis, but some of the things that were in there, we would have to have data and analysis to support. So that data, if they still are requiring that, we have to kind of support our decisions, if you know what I mean. We have to kind of justify it. And so that can take time.
Because a lot of this, 2006,
Yeah, I
a
mean,
lot of things have happened since.
yeah, exactly. There's a
2006.
lot in there needs to be changed. There are things in there. We have like a recreation open space concurrency requirement. If you look at what we had as level of service, I think there's things like tennis courts mentioned in there. I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff needs to be changed in there. So every 7 years is when you have to do it. I will tell you that some of the city managers in the past, I've only been here since 2012. There was an update in 2017-18. The city manager at that time didn't want to go through the process. And so we basically told them, when we were allowed to tell them, we could have done this time, send a letter and say, no, we're not going to make any changes at this time. We just have to address it with the ear. We just have to let them know whether we are going to make updates or not. So the only updates that have been made were the ones that had to be made, that were in the statutes, because if you don't make them, then they can tell us you're not allowed to have any more future land use map amendment changes. So yeah, the commission and the city manager weren't open to making big changes at that time back in 17, and this is 18, but I think 17 was when we looked at it.
Got it. So I guess one of the things for us to consider thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
To consider today is, as we mentioned, moving forward with the process. How do we want to move forward with the process? In hearing the staff, I think that if we go with the staff's recommendation, we can still work on this document concurrently while they're doing that it doesn't stop us from still having our discussions and keeping a tabulation of our amendments that we would like to see made to it. So we can mull over that a little bit more. What I was mentioning today in regards to discussion was really just following up on some of the things Dr. Chapin said last night, which is vision. Like, because that's what's going to sort of guide the document is the vision. Is if we say we want to keep a small town feel, then all the other things fall into that parameter of having a small town feel. If we're saying we want to have a downtown district, then some of that planning falls into a downtown district or historical district or a business district. And not necessarily saying that it has to be zoning, but if we want to identify some of those things, then the rest of that influences how we look at the comprehensive plan. So I wanted us to start having conversations, not about the details of changing the plan, but just about those envisioning processes of what we're envisioning before we even start touching the plan. Because if we don't have a vision, then we won't be able to really guide the plan. And I think it'll make it easier for us to actually go through the plan with having a vision of what we're hoping to see. So look into some, have some vision, look at some other cities, see how their vision statements maybe work out, some other cities that we might grow into. One of the things I would probably encourage us to do, and of course, everybody, please give feedback, is I think the challenge we have, and this is what I explain to citizens, because I get citizens who maybe are like Mr. Walker's age range, no picking on you, but citizens who been here a long time, or even new citizens, and not maybe Mr. Walker said, but new residents that come and say, why didn't y'all do this, or why didn't you do that? And so I explained the history of Lynn Haven, that Lynn Haven wasn't planning to be who we are today, right? We weren't planning to be the bustling city of who we are today. We was the suburb of Panama City. And so now we've developed into our own community and created our own stability where we're not relying on Panama City. We're our own community, our own city. And so the envisioning of that from our previous commissions probably didn't take that into grasp that 20 years ago, we might only had 10,000 people here. Well, now we've doubled that. And all of that is vision, right? And so I would maybe encourage us as we're looking at other cities, what is a city that with 30,000 people, what are they doing? What is a city with 40,000 people? What are our projection population growth? Now, of course, we're going to be limited on how much land we have as to how much population we can have, but with everyone wanting to build apartment complexes, it seems like we're out of sort of that single home building, and we are going to have a more dense population. So a lot of your subdivisions probably aren't going to really be in our future as much as a lot of, multifamily complexes. So what does that look like? What does a city of 30,000 people look like? And how do we prepare for that? What does a city of 40,000 people look like? And how do we prepare for that type of growth? What does that look like, for our city? So they're just some of my thoughts. Any feedback? What are that's some of the thoughts I've had since last night is how do we develop our vision? And I think we base it on, several factors, but one is population. And I did look at some cities that were like in the 30,000 population range in Florida. None of them are really well-known cities. It's not like it's a name that stands out. They say, okay, hey, this city has 30,000. So part of the challenge, I think, in Florida is there's a lot of cities that are our size, like Fort Walton, Destin, other cities. And the larger cities are usually 100,000 or more, like Pensacola is like 185,000 people. We may not think much of Pensacola, like, oh, it's not that big, but it's 185,000 people. So it's hard to look at Pensacola and say, we can be like Pensacola because we're probably never going to have 180. Bay County doesn't even have 185,000 people in our entire county, right? So there are some other factors. Do we want to be a city that does stuff for the military? Well, then we need to look at what does that look like for our comprehensive plan, from a building planning perspective, like what kind of community do we want to become? How does that work with our parks and all those kind of things? So that was just some of my thoughts on, envisioning things. And I think this really gives us a time to carve out our identity as a city. I think one of the things that we have not had, which has sort of challenged our vision over the years, is we haven't had our own identity. Like, what is Lynn Haven besides the suburb of Panama City? Like, most of the time you have to, hey, where do you live? Panama City Beach. Because nobody knows where Lynn Haven is. Like, now everybody knows where Panama City Beach is. Well, I live next door to Lynn Haven, or I live next door to Panama City, and Lynn Haven. So they probably ask you, well, where are you the commissioner? Where are you the mayor? Well, Lynn Haven. Well, where is that? By Panama City. Right. But I think, what do we do to have our own identity? There are some things that we're doing with our families and through our activities that really is giving us not our fall concert series, our spring concert series, our sports coming back. But, what is our identity that really makes Lynn Haven unique? And I think the comprehensive plan revolves around that as well. Ensuring that, hey, as we're growing and building, that they're helping with that identity at the same time. So I'm excited about it, but I think having that vision of what we're wanting to develop and getting input from our community on what they're wanting to see, because there is a tug of war, and some want to stay with the small town feel. And I guess, how do we keep a small town feel without conflicting or stifling growth at the same time? So that is, I think, one of the challenges we have as well, is that I think we all like the small town feel, the neighborly feel. I call it a big little city. Right? So I think everyone likes that I can drive to. If I don't get it at Walmart, I can go across to Publix. If I don't get it at Publix, I can drive 3 minutes to get to Winn-Dixie. Usually they don't have it. If they don't have it, then I don't even worry about going any further than that, right? But I mean, like, if I don't get it at Zaxby's, I go to Slim Chickens, or either I go to Beef O'Brady's. I mean, everything is really close together, where if you're at the beach or if you're at Panama City, I drive so far. So I like the big little city feel. But then how do we maintain that without telling developers that we don't want to grow, without saying that we can't grow? So I think that's the challenge we're going to have, because what I hear from citizens is, hey, we like our small town feel, but also how do we add these amenities without losing that neighborliness? But I think that's where we depend on our city activities, our 4th of July, our times in the park, music at the Bay, to still have that gathering of community where people don't feel like, we're losing that community that we've created, but still growing at the same time. So those are my morning thoughts.
Wow, you've been thinking a lot.
I have, yeah.
In looking at this last night, the goals appeared to be the vision, if you're looking at this document.
Yeah.
But to me, I think you need to have a vision, an overall vision,
Right.
and then establish goals.
Yes. No, I agree. The goal should come out of the vision.
Like, for example, if our vision is to become a big city, I'm just using this as
Yeah.
an example, then we establish the goals and everything else falls under those goals.
Yeah.
With the overall vision to become a big city,
No, I definitely agree.
And again, let me say, I'm not saying that. I'm simply using it as an example.
Yeah. I guess one question is, when, like Commissioner Ward mentioned, our process or approach, I think our process and approach is simple. When I'm saying simple, I don't think it's going to be difficult for us we can do it in commission meeting, we can have a workshop. I think the challenge is going to be, how do we get information from the community? How do our citizens get their input? And so I think that's one of the processes we have to consider is, how do we get community input on what the vision is, as we develop those goals. So I think up front, getting community input on the vision, I think is going to be very important. And then from that, we can develop the goals. And then, of course, they're going to still be giving input along the way, because we have to vote on this. We have to, do other things on it. But how do we get that initial input on the vision? Last night, we had 4 citizens here, planning board. I would, and not that I dismiss Mr. Walker being here. He's engaged. So I don't really count Mr. Walker. Joe Brown is always, I'm not saying I discount you, but just saying, okay, outside of Mr. Walker and Joe Brown, who are engaged in everything we do as a city, Monica was here. And so that was really 4 citizens that we had that but they're all engaged in what we do with planning anyway. So how do we get more input from all the people we hear that have concerns or complaints about what we do as a city? in regards to our comprehensive planning? Do we, so how do we do that? I think it's something for us to consider as well. Do we want to have, do we want to host a town hall and just have a big, hey, y'all come tell us what you're thinking? Because what we don't want to do on the back end is citizens say, well, we didn't have any input on, because it is our city, right? We didn't have any input on this. So I think if we could, how do we hear from the citizens to have input on what is it that they're wanting to see the future of Lynn Haven look like? And not that we all have to agree with it, and not that we don't tailor it, because some of it's going to be impossible, or maybe impossible, based on the size of our city. Then we go back and we talk to that's when we go back to our staff and say, okay, hey, this is what we're hearing. What does that really look like for the city? Is that something that is possible, right? So how do y'all think we can get input from the citizens? Would it be them submitting a survey, having a town hall where they come in and just give some ideas? I know we've had some charrettes in the past. So how do we get input, from the citizens outside of, because once we get into I don't think city commission meetings is really going to be the time for them to provide that input, because we're going to be rolling along, right? And even if we have a workshop, usually the workshop is for us to discuss things publicly and we get input from the citizens. But I think having something just for the citizens to be able to come and say, hey, this is.
Can we each select 2 people and start there? That would be 10 people of various age categories,
Okay.
just to go out among the people and get ideas and then come back. A group of 10 is easier to work with than a big group.
It is. I agree. We could consider that. But then what happens is if your person doesn't come and talk to me, then if you're
But your person talks to you.
right. So I guess we have 10 people, but we got 20,000 citizens. And of course, all 20,000 aren't going to have something to say.
So you have 50 people show up
Right.
for an open. Are
Right.
you really going to accomplish that much with 50 people all wanting to give their input?
Well, that's why I think we should. I know there's a lot of negative things that come from social media, but we
Yeah.
absolutely should do a survey.
So we do
Like
the
a
survey.
structured survey.
Right. Mr. Walker, are you on social media?
What?
Are you on Facebook?
No, man.
Okay. So we can do it. So I think we can do all of it. That's why we're getting the feedback.
See, I'm not on Facebook.
So we can do a search. So I think,
Yeah, but most people that are going to be around for our future,
Now, that's a good point. Yeah.
if
And
we're
that's what
looking,
we have to think of.
if we're
Yeah.
looking for the future, we should be
Yeah.
asking the people that are going to be here in the future.
no. So I'm not against social media,
Yeah.
but it says comprehensive, right?
Yeah, so
Right.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Not just one thing. We need multiple.
Yeah,
avenues.
yeah, multiple. So we can talk to 10 people. I see you, Ben. We do talk to 10. We can do that. What I don't want is for anyone to feel like they didn't have a voice to be able to express it.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Definitely.
It's like and of course, Methodists operate different than Baptists. But in the Baptist meeting, we let everybody
Okay,
come.
now. Are you
know.
throwing that out because I'm not that?
But just, like, so example, we can have a big meeting, but in that big meeting, we can still have it organized. Right. So I think we can still do a both and. So I'm not saying no to your
Well,
idea.
even with a small group, it's all open for any discussion.
Yeah. So,
You're not meeting in a security area.
so I think we
To
can.
me, having too many people is a good problem to have, because that's something I've struggled since I've been in office, where I want more people to come to meetings, but you see, typically, most of the time, it's always the same people, which I'm not saying they shouldn't be there, but it's nice to see new people and more people getting involved, and to me, the more community involvement you get, the better.
And I agree, but we have the same group, so therefore everything's going to be channeled in a certain direction. We need to bring some,
it.
different people in, some
Well-
young people for the next 20 years or 30
Yeah.
years. Sorry to say I won't be around, so, but I'd still want the city,
Right. So,
progressing.
I think we could possibly do all three. So we could have a focus group, is what you're referring to. So we could have a focus group. And so, okay, hey, here's 10 people that's part of the focus group. But we also have our planning board.
The
They're gonna be
planning
making,
board has to be involved, yeah.
they're going to be making recommendations as well, as we're going through. So we could have a focus group, but also, hey, here's this. Because what I don't want again is the backlash of y'all didn't give us the opportunity to have any input. So hey, here's a one and done town hall. Here it is. Give enough publicity for it. Everybody comes, gives your feedback, and what we do know is everybody's not going to come, but we don't want to say that we didn't give the opportunity for everybody to be able to come, to that. And then we could also have a focus group of 5 to 10 people to talk to, and then do the survey.
And we
Yes.
could also intertwine them too. So you could have, because there's people that will come to the town hall, but they don't like. That's my phone. Sorry.
And what you can do with
You have people that will come to a town hall, but they don't necessarily want to speak in public. So you could have them come listen, but then you could also have like a QR code for them to just scan their phone, answer their survey while they're there.
Yeah, I think that's how you sort of, as you mentioned, that sort of, again, it's not a melee, right? You moderate it. You say, this is our topic. Because what happens usually with town halls, people want to talk about different topics. No, this is all we're talking about is what's the future of Lynn Haven? What do you want to see? And then you sort of outline what that looks like through the survey. And then people can fill out their survey while they're here, get some feedback on that. Because again, I think everything that everyone proposes may not be feasible. For example, if we have some that say, why don't we have a downtown like Panama City does? Florida Avenue is not a main artery of Lynn Haven. So we're not going to have that downtown like Panama City has, because Harrison is a main artery. You start in Lynn Haven, you can drive all the way, and Harrison takes you somewhere. It takes you down to the to the bay, takes you to the marina. It used to take you to their city hall to pay your bills and all of that. Not saying that Florida Avenue can't be thriving, but it's not. I don't just naturally go down Florida Avenue unless I'm going to a back way to Ace Hardware. I'm actually going to Florida Avenue for something versus just I'm on my way through. So being able to share with them, we can't have that type of downtown. We can do some things on Florida Avenue, which we're planning to make it attractive. But hey, you might want this, but we can't. Somebody might say we want to walk over. We've even Commissioner Perno's talked about, hey, having to walk over from Florida Avenue across over here so they can get to King Griffin, Sheridan Sheffield Park easier. We can take that in, but then we come back and talk to staff and talk to state. They might be able to say, hey, that's not really feasible. So I think we get as much input as we can. Survey, talk with a focus group. For example, we could have a meeting at Mosley and say, what do you guys see for the future of Lynn Haven? When we had our Mayor's Youth Council, when we've done that, we're going to get that kick started. We've had to make some adjustments to it. They had a lot of good ideas. Most of their ideas revolved around being a green city and solar. So it's stuff that's totally different than what we're doing now. So I think that's another way is, do we take it to those particular areas and talk to them? Ben brings together a group of industrial leaders once a quarter. Well, we could ask Ben, hey, could you, not that you have to have an industrial luncheon, but hey, can you talk to some of the business leaders and ask them what do they see, as the future of Lynn Haven? When we go to Florida Avenue, we talk to some of the businesses that are over there. Like you go talk to the owner at Wild Root. They have a vision for what they want to see on Florida Avenue. You talk to Miss Monica and her dance crew. They have a vision for what they want to see on Florida Avenue. So people do have vision, but how do we give them opportunities, to have that input? So
I think one of the struggles can be is people not having a general vision, just talking, bringing up specific situations and problems and things, which we know we have. I think that's going to be one of the struggles to get feedback.
And I think what will help there, I think our best property town hall that we had was when we had Lynn Cherry to come in and facilitate it. You're going to need a facilitator if that's where you're going, where you're going to have a town hall. that she can facilitate the big picture and then go in and narrow it down to what people are really wanting. That was really, really a good town hall. I know her very well, and she does a very good job of that.
I'm sorry.
Lynn Cherry. Lynn, it used to be Lynn Gager. And then the second thing is we have these advisory boards. That's another place that we can pull ideas from.
Right.
Like we have the Community Services Advisory Board, CRA Advisory Board, that we pull information from those folks of what they like to see. They can do that within those meetings, take notes, submit it, here's some things here. If we want to be a little bit more structured, I will tell you, after Hurricane Michael, we had, I think it was about 4 or 5 workshops on how to rebuild a city. What did you want to see? Many of the things that's in this building actually came from residents of what they wanted to see. And there were a lot of people at those because they had a vested interest in what they wanted their city to be seen as and rebuilt as. So definitely many options to do that. But I definitely think we should use our advisory boards that really already a participating audience that they have to meet anyway. So in those meetings, engage them then, that we can get those done. But I agree, with Commissioner Ward is, getting people out. So we got to find a way to tap into getting those responses back. And surely we can do a survey, and I think it'll be very good. It can't be a long survey. We can do a QR code. Actually, Stantec did that when they came here and talked about the vulnerability assessment. So all of those things can happen. Just, when you guys are ready, give us some direction on how we want to set that up so we could start putting in place a facilitator.
I like that.
So I guess from a time perspective, again, I think if we put our big effort here initially, it'll make the goals and stuff easier, right? Because we know what the goals are, we work through that. So this is my suggestion. I mean, let's see where we go from there. Is in order to meet the deadline for February to allow staff to update what needs to be updated, we begin our work concurrently. But we have our budget and all that coming up before us. Mm-hmm. And so I think if we would like possibly for the month of August, September, allow that to be the envisioning time. Possibly maybe in September, we roll out our survey, we roll out the facility, the town hall possibly. If it's not going to be too much to conflict with budget time for staff. Because when I say the facility, because okay, well, but now, are y'all leading the meeting with the facilitating though?
That means if we're trying to roll
Right.
those out, you've got to be able to get a secure facilitator. You got to
Got
put
it.
all of that stuff together. You got, we got a lot going on in September to get this budget. That's like top priority for us.
Right,
Yeah, and everybody works on it.
right. Well, I'm trying to get us so that we can actually get started on the document in October. And not delay, because if not, then we're going to wait another 2 months before we get started.
But if you go and do what we're just talking about, Amanda going on and making those changes, then you have as much time as you want. That's one of the reasons why she was saying
Right.
that. So we can go on and say, yes, here's some changes we made. Now you are not in a state where you're rushing to try to meet a deadline. You don't have to do that.
Any feedback from y'all?
I think the key here is we just need to have an outline, like which is what you're doing right now. It's just as long as we have a set outline of what our vision, our process of how we're going to do it. Because if we have that, then we can get it in our minds. All right, this is when we need to focus on looking at this. This is when we need to focus on looking at this, which that's what you're talking about right now. So
Yeah.
I'm in full support of that. I just think that's the key is having that outline.
And the timeline.
Right.
I work better with the time.
I think with timeline, because as I mentioned last night, it's 13 chapters. So we could, and let me say, this isn't our first time digging into a document. I think we went through this with the International Property Maintenance Code, and we just took it a chapter at a time and just really dug in. I do hear Mr. Chapin, 6 months to a year. I think because we do have the pre-commission meetings, although we're saying, hey, this is one commission meeting to look at chapter 1, which is 13, 14 pages, we actually get 2 shots at it because we have our pre-commission meeting and we have our commission meeting. So if we look at, even if we look at 2, I think within 13 meetings, we meet twice a month, that we could get through it. And I'm not trying to rush us through it, but I think we could get through it because from listening to him and then from listening to the concerns that we have over the time and like the details and things, it's really more the ULDC that we're really talking about a lot of times whenever we're talking about development and such, and not so much. I know this is an important document, but it's really the ULDC which says what we can do. This is how it looks in practice, right? We have this document here, which guides what the ULC does, but that gets really to the nitty gritty of probably what we're wanting to change, are those standards and regulations.
Yeah, the LDRs.
All right,
Yeah,
2 points I'd like. What if these are not the goals that we want to use? There's 3 goals here for that first section that you're
Right.
talking about us reviewing. Let me give you an example. Not that this is what I'm saying, I'm just
Right.
simply, let everybody know, I'm simply using this as an example. One of the goals is to, forget the exact wording, it is protect historic resources.
right,
All right, we might decide that that's not a specific goal. It could be an objective,
right,
it could be a priority, but do we want it to be a goal for the next 30 years?
right.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I think before we spend too much time, we need to really know what our goals are.
that goes back to our vision.
Oh, exactly.
Right. So I'm not proposing that we jump on this. I'm thinking we get the vision stuff, which comes from the surveys, the town hall. And I guess the question is, at what point do we want to start working on this? Because I would suggest we don't start working on this until we get all that information for the vision. That's our first job, I think, is the vision. Is that once we get our vision in place, then the strategy, which is the goals, falls out of that. So I think, so that's the thing, you know, at what point do we want to start gathering the data for the vision is really, so I think step 1 is data gathering, which then informs the vision. And then once we get our data, I think we can start rolling from that point to look at, you know, what are our goals? And then how do we meet those objectives? You know, what are our objectives to meet those goals from that? So I guess,
I think it's gonna take a lot longer than we think to do it effectively. That's just my opinion.
it could, I guess it depends on how bad do we think things are that we need to change. So that's the other part is, I'm not saying it's not going to take long to do it effectively, but do we throw this whole document away and say we're not going to do anything that's in here?
Oh, no,
You
no.
know, so,
But
Also depends on how different the vision
I
is.
mean, this is
Right.
not something that's normal for us.
Yeah.
It's
True.
gonna take time. We're trying to figure out, okay, I honestly, I feel underqualified for this. Cause I'm going through it and it just makes my brain hurt thinking about it. 'cause
but
there's just
that's
so
why we got
much
all the
to think about.
professionals. Yeah,
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And
that's what they get paid to do.
right, correct. It's just a lot of stuff, and I get that it's not, you know, set in stone. That's what the ULDC is for, but this does drive us to
Yeah.
where we want to be in the future. And that's why I think it's so important. I just think it's going to take a while.
well, I meant some of it won't be changed unless
Yeah.
we make drastic changes like land use types. You know,
Right.
that's still gonna be in here
Well,
unless we go
the
zoning.
zoning, which that's gonna be, I'm sure, a pretty big conversation.
Yeah,
So that might take a while for us to decipher, you know, if that's the direction we wanna go or not.
So from what I'm hearing, I think, so,
One thing to keep in mind is this is a very high level document. So
yeah,
I don't want to Commissioner Ward's comment that, he feels underqualified. You're an elected official whose job here is to think about the long-term vision for the city, even if you don't get all the data you hope you get from your citizens. And to your comment, Mayor, yes, you do have a team of professionals that will implement the direction you want to go. So I don't want anybody to worry about being underqualified because you are exactly in this position now for this moment to think about what you want your city to look like. But it is a long-term, big picture document. And then once you have that in place, we'll make the changes to the comp plan, we'll make the changes to the LDC, everything else will follow. But you're correct to look at the big picture, what you want the city to look like.
so one thought, because like I said, I do know we have budget stuff coming up, is to use the month, we could get through October, or get through September. October, we could use that as our, and we could start gathering data now, but we could use it as our rollout for data gathering, because once we get to November, December, the community is disengaged. Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, everybody's happy. You have less complaints during Christmas because everybody's happy.
Well, maybe their focus of complaints just isn't the city. Maybe they're complaining
Right.
about, like,
Or they're complaining at Walmart, all those other places,
Exactly.
right? So they're stressed out.
right. Their complaints are with Amazon.
So,
but we can go ahead and do a survey just asking,
but
Opinions.
from what we're hearing is staff is saying they're going to be engaged in budget stuff. Because so if we could use the month of October, or if we just start gathering data now, because so let's say if we use the month of October to gather data, then we could use November, December, our meetings to sort of talk about what that looks like from a vision statement perspective. And then when we come back in January, we could hit the ground running with, goals, objectives, those kind of things. Or we could gather data now. And then when October comes, sort of start looking at what does that look like from a vision statement. But then we'll lose momentum in November, December because of the break. So
I
So,
do
yeah.
like Commissioner Vandergrift's idea. You could do the survey now, but you're still going to have to, as a commission, give us direction as to what you want those questions to be. What do you want?
Yeah.
What do you want? How do you want us to pull this together? We can surely do that. Which policy is in your realm, and then we just follow that in terms of what is it that you would like to hear back from those residents? Like what are those questions you want on there? We could surely put the questions together, but they may not be what you're looking for. So, we can start working on that, submit some things, but then you're gonna have to prove, yes, these are the questions I want to ask. No, I want to ask some additional questions, to put in this survey. So that's gonna take a minute or two, but we just need some direction on the survey. We can surely put it together and put some questions there. That's not a problem. But we want to make sure it's what you want, to ask residents as well.
well, I think the first go round, you want it pretty simple and easy,
Absolutely.
What do you want the city to look like in 20 years? Or what is your vision for the next 20 years for Lynn Haven? What goals would you like to see this commission work toward? Or, just maybe 3, 4, 5 simple questions. Because you're going to have to compile all this information.
Yeah. And I will tell you, Florida League of Cities has a survey down pat. That when they send out a survey, you don't have to sit there and type a lot. And I will tell you, again, people will not respond to surveys where you got to sit there and type up a whole bunch of stuff. You got to give them choices. So what do you want the city to look like? So you got to have about 10 choices there. Choose from 1 to 10. And then we can go in and gather that with data, just pulling all the ones together, all the fives together, whatever it may be. So when you ask that question, you got to give them choices. So what are your choices of what you would like to see this city look like?
So if we do the survey now, when would we do the town hall? Is that, so we could roll the survey out August, September, I guess we'll do the town hall in October. But then we still have to come back and compile that data to go along with the survey data.
Well, we also have to have the choices
That's
for the survey.
Right. So let's take the next couple of weeks to think about,
What needs to be on the survey?
yeah. Like, for example, we say, what kind of city would you like Lynn Haven to be? There's small town is a descriptor. You know, what are some descriptors of what they would like Lynn Haven to look like? You know, look at some descriptors of what would like this small, because I did like what you just mentioned. You know, what are the goals for this? You know, maybe five to seven questions on the survey.
And then you rank them.
Yeah. And possibly it could just be, the questions could be going back, looking at our current vision statement and just sort of asking that, what type of development would you like to see in Lynn Haven? Because this is saying, you know, to promote infill development within core residential and commercial areas of the city and allow mixed uses. Okay, well, what kind of development would you like to see in Lynn Haven over the next 20 years? And then give some different development options. So I think our questions are sort of based on the current vision that we have. I think that breaks down into what the questions could be, and then giving those options so we can get the feedback, you know, from the community on small town, whatever the other descriptors of a city might be, right? You know, and then development, those kind of things. So,
So are you directing me to go and begin the survey, start it, put it together, then send it out to you all where you can massage it? Is that what,
That's what I think.
okay,
yes,
So you guys agree?
I like that.
based on our current vision.
okay, okay.
So whatever, you know, the topics that we're discussing in this current vision, and sort of developing a survey around that. Because that's what the purpose of the survey is to get our vision. And then we go from there. All right,
Work on it.
great. Well, that's our time for today. And what, is there any other pertinent issues to discuss before we go?
Something I wanted to bring up was, wanted to get you guys', something I've been thinking about, but something I want to get your guys' perspective on is the budget process. I feel like, you know, September rolls around, the city presents the budget, this is the trim rate we want to be at, and we get just the one question, whether you approve it or not approve it. I personally wonder if it's better to have different options, such as if you were to keep the trim rate the same. Let's just put it this scenario. Let's say the city wants to increase the trim rate right now. It's at 4.2. Doesn't mean it's set in stone yet. Get that. But let's say they do want to do that, and that's what the budget is based on. So they present us a budget based on the 4.2 millage rate. And then, but what if we had other options? Like, what if you do keep the millage rate at the same rate? What would your shortfalls be? Right. And of course, you'd have to prioritize that to the things that are the least critical, least important. And then you have another option of, what if you do it at the rollback rate? What would your shortfalls be? And then, depending on what difference of the current rate versus the projected rate, if there's a big enough difference, another one that might be in between. I just feel like we kind of get boxed in a corner, and it's like, well, here you go, and either approve it or you don't approve it.
Got it.
I would like it where, just my opinion, if this is our shortfalls, we as a commission decide, are we willing to take these shortfalls or not?
Got it. So if I'm hearing you're saying that if they, hey, here's the trim rate for this, then these are the cuts that we're gonna have to have for the year to meet this. I guess almost like three different budget proposals, maybe.
3 to 4. I mean, like, let's say they're going from 4.0 to 4.1, then you probably have 3 of them. You have what they want, base it on the current rate, and then base it on the rollback rate, and then you wouldn't have the one in between, 'cause there really isn't one between 4.0 and 4.2. But let's say it went from 4.0 to 4.2, then you might have a third one that's based on the 4.1 trim rate,
Got it.
so.
What do you guys think about that?
I know it's gonna be more work, but I think it's worth it.
Okay.
Our finance person isn't here.
Well, I can tell you, because Kiki and I both work on this budget, is that when we do the budget, we're doing cuts then. I mean, serious cuts. So when you get it, it is probably, you're probably not going to find any other cuts in it. That's just being very honest.
And that's
We can
okay.
surely-
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
So if we do, and we's like, man, there's no way we can take this. So when residents come to us and they say, well, you guys increased the millage rate, okay? If we wouldn't have, here's the implications if we did. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And not just to tell the residents, but I think it's important to us to know too, is if we don't do that, here's the repercussions that'll happen if we don't.
Got it.
Yeah.
So sounds good.
So we would say these are the programs we would have to discontinue if we did not raise the millage rate.
I guess it's more, if I'm hearing, if, and I'm not trying to talk for you, but I'm just getting, my understanding is providing justifications for the actions that we do take.
And we have options, you
And
know,
we have
like there might be
options.
something like, I'm willing to cut that, you know, or we, I didn't say we are willing to take that shortfall and be like, okay, got it. And obviously you're not gonna put something on there that's really critical, like the sewer plant, you know,
Got
you're gonna put something on there that's like, okay, maybe, and I'm just throwing it as an example, you know, some of the events that we have, you know, Easter egg hunt or something, you might have to cut that, you know, or maybe you're not gonna be able to have this, or you're not gonna have that, you know, stuff like that.
So from what I'm hearing, Commissioner Wood, from what I'm understanding, and I'm just picturing it in the other organizations I was looking for budgeting, we really don't have as much input into the budget. It's really more, this is a number that's presented and we just vote on it versus,
Like take it or leave it.
versus, hey, do we want to increase the budget for this? And what does it look like? What is it going to take to increase? Like if we come back and say, we want to put more money into the fire department, well, what does that look like to put more money into the fire department? So as the commission, we're really not given those options of, if you want to put $1 million into the fire department, $1 million into this, or if we want to, like for somebody wants to build a football stadium. So if we want to build a football stadium, if we vote to say we're going to build a football stadium, what is it going to cost us? What does the millage rate look like to have to build that football stadium?
Right.
We can do that, and I thought we were doing it, maybe not, in the 101s that we have with you. I mean, Kiki already has that trim amount set up in there. And then at any time, excuse me, she can go in there and change that to show you how the shortfall is going to look. That, I mean, that's what we play with all the time. So we're aiming for the low always. But you may say, hey, I want to build a football field, so we'll put in 4.5 millage. That's just,
Right.
you know, then you'll see, oh, okay, that's what happens there. So all of your one-on-ones, that's surely the time. And then we can share that with the residents because if not, you're going to have 3-4 different budgets because she's doing it off
I'm not
of
necessarily saying different,
yeah. If we were presenting this to the
if you would
residents,
present the budget that the city wants, right, that they're proposing. And then, okay, if we do the trim rate at the current rate, we're not gonna raise it, or if we're gonna do it at the rollback rate, these are the areas we're gonna have to cut in order to get there. That's basically what I'm getting at. So I'm not asking you to redo the budget. I just,
oh, no.
to do another budget for each option.
Yeah,
Well, I'm good.
and that's what I'm saying. We can plug in 4.0 like it was last year. You can see the whole budget, what it would look like in general fund
Right.
for that. I want to see where it's 4.2. You can plug that in as well
Right.
and see that live and
Right.
what the shortfall will
But then
be.
we're only getting that option one-on-one versus the commission as a whole being able to see that option, I think is what Commissioner Ward was saying.
Right, I mean, there's one thing to see as numbers, but it's like, okay, what specifically are you going to have to cut for that fiscal year?
And you'll be able
If
to
you
go
do, if you do these other rates that are lower than what the city is proposing.
I mean, we could surely do that. We'll have to work hard to make sure we get it done.
Yeah, because some areas are not going to be cut. Like if we drop the millage rate to 3.9, we're not going to cut the fire department because
Right.
that means we're cutting employees, but you're going to cut X, Y, Z.
Right.
So I guess he's saying what areas can we highlight to say if we decrease this, if we propose this millage rate or trim, then this is what this is going to look like for these particular areas. And
You
not
will
the whole
still
budget.
get that in your one-on-one, and then you can come together and talk about, but I just want to let you know that option is in your one-on-ones, to be
Yeah.
able to see that, to see the changes that will happen on each individual budget, what it's going to look like in the end if you do this. Because you should go back to the detail, and it will let you see where you're in the red if you put it at 3.7. And then if you go and put it at 4, where you are in the black. So you'll definitely be able to see that. I think your one-on-ones are the 26th. We're still working on the budget. Of course, Kiki is out for the next 2 weeks. But we will surely be able to give you all of the information. I mean, I love the idea because that's what we do. We do that all the time.
Yeah, and I'm not implying that, it's just, I think if we were to show the residents what the implications would be if we did that, I know of me, if I was in commission, I would appreciate that, oh, okay, I see where we're at. Okay.
You'll be able to see it real time
Yeah.
if we change it.
And I guess it's like what we do for the rates, because whenever y'all bring us to water
So
rates, y'all give
that-
us 3 different
That,
options.
and that was the second thing I was gonna bring up is, what if we do the same thing for the rates and the stormwater assessment fee?
Yeah.
If we don't do this, especially stormwater assessment, that's a big one, right? If we don't raise it, what are the implications if we don't
Yeah.
raise it?
Yeah.
So,
You know, once we have a working comprehensive plan, the budget will have to relate to whatever we wish for our vision or our goals.
Well, and that's what we talk about when it comes to, I don't think we had one this year, but last year, when y'all first came on, we had like that strategic planning workshop that we had with the commission, was that, hey, our budget sort of aligns with whatever goals they have, which then if we agree to the strategic plan that they created, then it makes it a little easier when they bring things to us. Should make it easier when they bring it to us for approval because we've, in some sense, already approved it. And now they're just going out to do the things that we said, hey, let's go do this. But then when they do bring stuff to us that we ask them to do, and we say no, then it's like, well, you told us to go do this. And then we're doing it, now you're saying no. So, but yeah, the comprehensive plan is going to be a guiding document for us on everything we do.
Oh, one other question. Bay County has a comprehensive plan? Don't you think it'd be wise for us to look at it, since we are in Bay County? Not to guide us, but just to be able to see what their
Feed off of it.
priorities are.
piggyback, that's the
Yeah.
key word. to do,
Oh, yeah, the
piggyback.
piggyback.
Typically, that's what we do with everything is we look at what other areas,
Yeah.
like Bay County, Panama City, if we're changing a law or coming with an ordinance, we usually look at what other people have already done in the community, to do that. We could look at their comprehensive plan. I think part of the challenge is their vision is different than ours.
Oh, just to see what they
Yeah.
put as priorities. Like one of their priorities might be to work with their municipalities within the area.
Yeah.
Just, an example.
So we
So
can
we
look at
might
that.
need to include that in ours to work cooperatively with the county.
Yeah. All right. Well, awesome. I've enjoyed my time with you all last night and today. I'll see you Tuesday.